Okay, breathing and exchange of gases. So in this chapter we have the section that is regulation of respiration. So how respiration is regulated in our human body. We have the ability to maintain it, right, and moderate the respiratory rhythm, and moderate the respiratory rhythm, that is exchange of O2 and CO2 between body and atmosphere, right. Now in regulation of respiration, there is a specialized center in our neural system, that is the medulla region, the brain. Okay, a specialized center present in the medulla region of the brain called the respiratory rhythm center. Now this center, that is a specialized respiratory rhythm center in medulla region, is primarily the main function is responsible for this regulation of respiration. Now, so this was the specialized center, that is a respiratory rhythm center in the medulla region of brain. Now, another center present in the pons region, another center present in the pons region of the brain called the pneumotaxic center. Now, this pneumotaxic center can moderate the functions of the respiratory rhythm center. So, a specialized center present in the medulla region in the brain, that is respiratory rhythm center. Now, this respiratory rhythm center can be controlled, can be moderated by the pneumotoxic center present in the pons region of the brain. Okay, pons region of the brain. How it affects? Neural signal from this center can reduce the duration of inspiration. That is, it reduces it reduces the it reduces the inspiration. That is, inspiration is taking O2 inside our body, so that is inspiration, and thereby alter the respiratory rate. So this pneumotoxic center, which is present in the pons region of the brain, can moderate the respiratory rhythm center and can reduce the duration. By reducing the duration of inspiration, what is respiratory rhythm center? In the medulla region of the brain, there is a specialized center, and that center is respiratory rhythm center. Now, this respiratory rhythm center can be moderate by the pneumotoxic center present in the pons region of the brain. So the main center is the respiratory rhythm center. It's the main coordinating system. But this pneumotoxic center helps the respiratory rhythm center to change or regulate the respiration by reducing the duration of inspiration, right? So this was it. Now, so now a chemosynthetic area. So this is a third thing that controls the regulation of respiration. We have seen respiratory rhythm center first. The second comes the pneumotaxic center, chemosynthetic area. Now the position of this chemosynthetic area. Now the position of this chemosynthetic area is adjacent to the rhythm center, that is a respiratory rhythm center, which is present in the medulla. So this chemosynthetic area is also present in the medulla, but it is adjacent to the respiratory rhythm center, which is present in the medulla. Okay, now 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 so now this chemosynthetic area is highly sensitive to CO2 and hydrogen ions. This chemosynthetic area very highly sensitive to CO2 and hydrogen ions. We know in the exchange of gases, CO2 is a and O2. These are the gases that exchange between atmosphere and body. So it's highly sensitive to CO2 and hydrogen gas. Remember that the role of oxygen in the regulation of respiratory rhythm is quite insignificant. Although oxygen and CO2 both involved in the breathing process, both involved in the respiration, but oxygen in here, the role is very negligible or insignificant, right? So the main gases are CO2 and hydrogen gas little bit. Now, so this was the third thing that regulates the respiration. First is the respiratory rhythm center in medulla. Second is the pneumotaxic center in the pons region of brain. Third is the chemosynthetic area, which is also present in the medulla. Okay, adjacent to the respiratory rhythm center. Now, the fourth thing that regulates the respiration is the receptors. We have seen that receptors are proteins. They have their function. They have sensory functions. They can smell, taste, membrane bound receptors, hormones. So these are the receptors. Now these receptors associated with aortic arch and carotid artery. So these receptors which is associated with aortic arch and carotid artery. Aortic arch and carotid artery, these are involved in blood flow, right? These are type of arteries. Now these receptors on these arteries can recognize changes in CO2 and H plus concentration. So we 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 see here that chemosynthetic area also sensitive to CO2 and H plus ions, and these receptors with aortic arch and carotid artery also detect the changes in CO2 and H plus concentration. It's kind of sensitive, right? So can ask the question, which of them sensitive to CO2 and H plus ions? So the chemosynthetic area and the receptors. Such questions may not ask, but that's the difference, right? So this is how regulation of respiration is done. Okay, as we human beings have ability to maintain it and moderate it, it is done by the respiratory rhythm center, the master coordinating system, then the pneumotaxic center present in pons region, then the chemosynthetic area, and then the receptors associated with aortic arch and carotid artery. Okay, so this was it. So this was the regulation of respiration. Now we also see some disorders of respiratory system. Some disorders of respiratory system, that is the exchange of O2 and CO2. So asthma is the respiratory system disorder. So what is asthma? Asthma is a difficulty in breathing. It is difficulty in the inhalation and exhalation, taking O2, releasing CO2. Okay. Now, when the difficulty occurs, causing, now this causes us wheezing due to, that is chink in Hindi, wheezing due to inflammation of bronchi and bronchioles. Remember, bronchia and bronchioles, these are bronchia and bronchioles, these are part of, you know, the lungs and all that. Bronchia and bronchioles, trachea, all these things. Okay, so bronchia and bronchioles. So inflammation, that is swollen bronchi and bronchioles, okay, causes the wheezing that makes breathing difficult. So this is asthma. Again, inflammation of bronchi and bronchioles causes wheezing that makes breathing difficult, is the asthma. Now the second respiratory system disorder is emphysema. Now what is emphysema? It is a chronic disorder. Okay, it is a chronic disorder. It happens slowly, in which alveolar walls are damaged. Alveolar walls are damaged. No, alveolar walls, where the exchange of O2 and CO2 takes place by the diffusion. So these alveolar walls are damaged. Now, once it damaged, due to which respiratory surface decrease. That means there will be difficulty in O2 and CO2 exchange. Now, one of the major causes of this is a cigarette smoking. So, cigarette smoking causes emphysema, which is a respiratory disorder. Now, the third respiratory disorder is occupational respiratory disorders. Okay, so occupational respiratory disorder, because occupation, that is grinding occupation or stone or breaking, it's a respiratory disorder. Okay, in which, so due to grinding or stone breaking, so much dust is produced that defense mechanism of the body cannot fully cope with the situation. Now long exposure can give rise to inflammation leading to fibrosis, that is proliferation of fibrous tissues, thus causing the serious lung damage. Now workers in such industries should wear protective masks. So this was the occupational respiratory disorders. So three types of disorders we have seen. These are asthma, emphysema, and occupational respiratory disorders. So this was it.